Hello and welcome everyone. Today's video features the brand new premium Canadian battleship Yukon, which enters the Commonwealth branch at Tier 7. The Yukon is similar to the Royal Navy battleship HMS Monarch, but with some significant differences. However, before diving into a full review of the Yukon, included recommended build and complete ship stats, let me first say the Yukon will be available both in the premium store and the cheapest bundle in the armory will be 9,800 doubloons. Let me start as usual by putting up the full recommended build that I've been using in this gameplay footage. Nothing really too unusual here, as I'm using a full tank build for maximum survivability. The only thing that may stand out here is the choice for steering gears, mod 1 in slot 4, instead of damage con system mod 2, as the rudder shift time on the Yukon is amazing, which I'll cover later in more detail. As already stated, the Yukon at Tier 7 is based on the Tier 8 HMS Monarch, with some major differences, starting with the armour layout. Using a simple port screenshot here, we can see that unlike the Monarch, which gets 32mm of fore and aft end, plus deck plating, the Yukon gets complete upper coverage of 26mm. This has two major downsides, as it increases the Yukon's vulnerability to high explosive spam and the increased risk of armor piercing overmatching mechanics from any gun caliber of 381mm and above. In other words, the vast majority of opponents one tends to come into contact with in random battles. This bow and stern armor is still enough to bounce 356mm caliber shells when angled correctly, however, so it's very important to know your opponent and angle accordingly. Otherwise, the armor is quite decent, with multiple sections of main belt armor below the turrets, extending both above and below the waterline of 381mm, and a central section of 356mm. Deeper under the waterline, the armour thickness is again in two sections of 260mm and a central section of 230. There are additional strips of both fore end and aft end plating, providing additional protection to the turrets of 325 and 310mm respectively. The superstructure gets the standard 16mm of plating, while the three main gun turrets get a frontal plating of 381mm, two sections of sloped side plating, front side plating of 305mm, and back side armour of 229. The rear plating is quite strong at 457mm, while the top plating consists of 152mm of armour. With this reduction in upper armour, one might be forgiven into thinking that the Yukon sacrifices a lot of survivability, but the opposite is true. The Yukon gets 60,500 hit points and a torpedo protection damage reduction of 22%, which is massively reinforced by having access to the specialized repair team, 4 in total when using the skill emergency repair expert. This is the so-called super heal, almost identical to the super heal on the Nelson, capable of repairing a massive 1452 hit points per second for 22 seconds. This survivability is further reinforced by its superior maneuverability and concealment, both of which I'll return to later, but first to the main battery. The Yukon gets 9 381mm guns in 3 triple mounted turrets, 2 fore and 1 aft, with a 180-degree turning time of 37.5 seconds, with a reload time of 31.5 seconds and a max firing range of 15.7 kilometers. Despite having the exact same gun caliber and layout as the Monarch, these main battery guns lose range, but gain by having very good dispersion of just 201 meters and an improved gun sigma of 1.9. These 381mm guns can fire both high explosive and armor piercing rounds. The HE rounds have a max damage of 5300, which can penetrate up to 64mm of armor and have a 34% chance of setting the target on fire, but do have a slower shell speed of 731 meters per second. Yukon's armor-piercing rounds can inflict a max damage of 11,900 and have a faster shell speed of 836 meters per second. Personally, I found the armor-piercing to be quite reliable, and the combination of playing closer to enemy targets, having both good dispersion and improved sigma with short fuse times, which greatly helps reduce the amount of overpens, really enhanced the whole AP experience. So I wanted to show a game where I used only armor piercing for the duration of a match, and the results felt really quite solid. The high explosive potential of the Royal Navy line is already well known, on which this Yukon is based, so it's very nice to see the armor piercing perform so well. The short firing range of only 15.7 kilometers can be increased, however, to 18.8 kilometers with the spotter plane for those longer engagements if and when required. Despite regularly playing the Yukon at medium range, I rarely found myself brawling if I could help it due to this large coverage of 26mm armor. Should you find yourself in close quarters, Yukon does have 16 133mm secondary guns in 8 twin-mounted turrets, firing high explosive rounds with a reload time of 6.7 seconds, capable of inflicting a max damage of 1900 and able to penetrate 22mm of armor with an 8% chance of setting the target on fire. Base firing range of 5.9 kilometers and a shell velocity of 792 meters per second. When it comes to AA defense, Yukon gets 102 AA guns in total, ranging from 20mm, a large number of 40mm, right up to 130mm gun caliber. All combined, they can pump out a continuous average damage of 223, the vast majority of which is short and medium range, up to 2.5 kilometers. The Yukon can fire 4 shell explosions per flak salvo, which have a max damage of 1330 and a max firing range of 5.2 kilometers. Having just 26mm everywhere when faced with aerial assault, Yukon is vulnerable to armor-piercing bombs in particular, so seek out AA support when at all possible. The major advantage of playing at medium range is most of the cruisers at this tier have the same range, so AA support should never be too far away when positioned well. That being said, playing at such a range also puts you usually within reach of the enemy cruisers. It can be a fine line at times between getting focused or being isolated. This is where the Yukon really shines for me though. The ability to get in close to deliver devastating salvos on target, disengage, drop detection, relocate, heal up and rinse repeat. Yukon has a really nice balance of good maneuverability and great concealment, allowing for such actions. The Yukon gets a base speed of 28 knots, which can be increased to 29.4 knots. with the Sierra Mike signal flag, which is in itself nothing special at Tier 7. It's the turning circle of 790 meters and the amazing rudder shift time of 7.8 seconds, which is fantastic for a battleship, allowing for fast turns and very effective maneuvering under fire. Combine this with the best concealment for any battleship at Tier 7, the Yukon can only be surface detected at 11.5 kilometers, which is very competitive for Tier 7. For a final comparison with the Monarch, it's the exact same concealment as its Tier 8 counterpart, despite not having access to the concealment upgrade. Simply put, you outspot every other battleship, generally allowing you to fire first in any kind of 1v1 engagement with enemy heavies at Tier 7. Finally, stats-wise, Yukon will be spotted by enemy aircraft at 8.2 kilometers. To summarize, the Yukon has some excellent handling and concealment characteristics, which for me are her greatest assets. Between her good concealment and rudder shift time, Yukon is fairly adept at both hiding and dodging. Furthermore, her specialized repair team feels very strong. A successful playstyle should be built around fast aggressive attacks without overextending but taking up positions, allowing you to disengage and heal. Master this and Yukon can keep coming back over and over again. It's only when taking damage to her citadel, be it from bombs, torpedoes, or enemy armor piercing, that can kind of slow Yukon down. The challenge with playing Yukon is learning to deal with her relatively short firing range. Yukon has to get close, so your best practice is to perform hit and run tactics, firing a couple of salvos and then going dark, pulling back to heal, recover and reposition. With the removal of the Haida and the introduction of the Yukon, she becomes the only Canadian ship that is currently available for purchase in the game. So for this reason alone, I expect the Yukon to be quite popular. If you're comfortable with a hit and run playstyle, Yukon can be a really strong choice and a potential match winner, and I must admit to have been pleasantly surprised when playing her. Despite not being a battleship main, I felt I was able to adapt a lot of cruiser tactics, which really melded with her quite well, and I was impressed by her general performance. I hope I was able to provide you some useful information on the Yukon, not only just her stats, but on how she plays, and that you enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit that like button below if you did. It really helps me out a lot, so thank you all in advance. If you'd like to see some more live Yukon gameplay, you can find me streaming on Twitch regularly during the week. You can see the link here on screen and also find it in the video description below. Feel free to come on over if you have any questions or just want to hang out for some chilled out live gameplay. I look forward to seeing you all. I'd like to thank you once again all for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more. Take a moment to check out some of my most recent videos and leave a comment below. And until the next time, keep sailing it like you stole it.